Hey, this is William Tidcup and Ryan Leary. This is the Practitioner's Corner. We have one of my all-time favorite HR people, which he would never describe himself that way, Charlie Judy on. Charlie and I met each other online 140 years ago when he was blogging from HR Fishbowl, which today is still one of the greatest URLs. And I think you had the Twitter. I think you had all of it, but you were actually back then. You were actually, I can't remember if you had a manifesto or if it was a list and you were just adding to the list. It was a bit that I really, really liked. And it was from afar. What I liked about it is it was real. There's so much people talking very, very conservatively about HR and people not taking risk or even talking about what's wrong. And what I remember from that experience is like, no, I'm going to actually tell you what's wrong. Or here's something we could do better or something like that. So uh, since then, we've been on stage together. We've done other stuff. I podcasted with you um, a bunch of times with Drive Through HR because you were always there, which was nice. Like if we needed a guest, we could always. You were one of the people, Robin Schooling, a couple others that were really dependable. We could always go, "Hey man, need a guest. What are you doing?" And so I've always appreciated that about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now.
Man, thanks for the intro. I mean, it's great to see you both. And Tin Cup, you've been on a short list of people that I'm willing to talk to when they call. So that, and I'm not even sure my mom's on that list, really. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a fair statement.
I don't think I've ever seen you fanboy over somebody so much.
Wow,
dude,
I'm a little hurt by this,
mad respect.
I mean, there's some stuff behind that fanboyism, and it goes both ways, by the way. But I mean, there's some stories that are not fit for podcasts.
Oh, they're fit. They're
Statute of limitations hasn't run
out. Yeah, dude, I was trying to find what you're referring. That's amazing that you remember it.
Was it a manifesto? Was it a manifesto?
It wasn't a manifesto, and I can't remember what they were called. I mean, this was before we had like hashtags.
I know.
But it was a list.
It was a list.
It was like pithy kind of bullshit. Like and I can't find it. Like I'm sure if I go back into the way back machine,
it's got to be a copy of it.
Got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know, it was like 150.
Oh yeah.
Like you just picked up along the way, and and it was stuff like the best people that are the best at using performance management systems are the ones that are worst at giving feedback.
Yes, it was real dope. It was real, and again,
see why you guys get along.
Oh yeah, and at the time, a lot of it was just generic, conservative, just like people wouldn't like address the problem. Either they didn't think they had a problem, or they didn't have the words, etc. And Charlie stuck out at the time because he would just, and again, it was short. He wasn't writing, paragraphs on paragraphs. It was real short, actionable stuff.
Yeah.
Like just advice. Just here's the advice. Take it or don't. There you go. Learn or don't care. Move on.
Well, I think that's probably part of. I mean, I think there's still. I see more and more of that kind of behavior in the world of HR leadership. I do think that experts are more willing to say what needs to be said, even if it's not popular, even if it's not political. Like and maybe I'm naive about this, but I think it is no longer that the HR person is always the most political person in the
world. Right. Right.
And I think that's a good thing.
Oh, yes. It's some of that's generational. I don't know about how much, but some of it's generational because you see in younger millennials and Gen Z that they're just not willing to do shit the same way that we did. Like they're just unwilling. Like, okay, you need to do this. Like, no.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I'd have had that thought. You can just say no?
That's actually a thing. Yeah.
Huh. Well,
Um,
I
Who
just
knew?
I had to stay in this shitty job, and that was just it.
yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knew?
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know what you guys want to know, man. I mean,
What are you
biograph.
doing? What are you doing? What are you doing currently?
Yeah.
Start with that.
So I'm the chief people and culture officer, CHRO, whatever you want to call me for software company, intelligent medical objects. We're in the healthcare space. We're all into really just making the data that permeates the world of healthcare better. Just cleaner, crisper, higher quality, more reliable, actionable. You know, just as an example, 80% of all healthcare record data is unstructured.
Yep.
So it sits in a freaking free form text field. And for anybody that knows anything about analytics and trials and research, and you can't do anything with that, right? But so my and I know this is not about my company, but so my company is all about helping do something, helping the ecosystem, healthcare ecosystem, do something more meaningful with that data. It's and we're a 30-year-old company, but we're a 30-year-old startup, and
Right.
we got our first private equity infusion 8 years ago, and I was hired as the first chief people and culture officer back in 2019, as the new CEO was starting to kind of live out, put into practice this vision of taking what was really a gem and polishing it and starting to think about really what more it could be. And so I've now been here for close to 5 years, and I'm in my second hold of private equity owners and enjoying the private equity space. I lead a team that does all things people, employee experience, employment, compliance, comp, ben, L&D, for roughly 350 employees. We are engineers, we are technologists, we are data scientists, we are AI experts. We're in the natural language processing space, the large language modeling space. We hire some really, really fascinating, cool people, but we also hire informaticists that understand the healthcare lexicon and semantics, and we have clinicians, we have docs, we have nurses. This is a really cool, diverse workforce with diverse talents and really fascinating stuff. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So I know you have a non-traditional upbringing in the space. I've heard you guys talk about it. So why don't we start there? Why don't we go back to the younger Charlie Judy and kind of take us through how you started, and we'll just start digging in from there.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated from college at a time when I kind of looked around me and realized that the only people in my undergraduate business school class that were getting jobs were accountants. So,
So you became an accountant.
yeah,
100%.
I mean, I wasn't like, I didn't have passion or purpose beyond money.
Like, who's getting jobs? Okay, investment banking sounds good. Let's go do that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I did, and I started my career with Deloitte.
Yep.
I spent 13 years with them actually. Kind of who knew? I knew pretty soon that like that wasn't going to be my gig,
But you
but
stuck it out for 13 years.
Still, you remember you can say no.
yeah, well. So here's kind of the other cool thing about this, though, is, and I mean, and I'm at a stage in my career like I'm certainly I'm not in my swan song, but I'm starting to write it.
Right.
I'm in that stage where I get to look back on kind of all the things that happened and to get me to where I am. And I'd love to think that at least some of it was planned. And some of it was, right?
Right.
But a lot of it was just freaking either accident or, taking advantage of something that landed on my lap.
Right.
Or getting pushed,
Right.
Which, by the way, just side note on that, man, if somebody pushes you out the door, you'll end up thanking them someday. I promise you.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
So like, it's like all of those things have happened to me along the way. I don't know that there's anything more I could have done to advance my career as an HR professional than the time that I spent as a public accountant. I mean, from a variety of reasons, the simplest of which is that I just understand a business,
right,
the mechanics of a business, the financials of a business in a way that I think many people don't enter this profession having done. But I also learned relationships. I also learned influence. I also learned boardroom presence. I also learned, people, because everything that we did was about getting somebody, whether it was your own team or the client that you were serving, on board with something.
So how'd you get in? What was the first leap into HR?
So I just gotten done doing a 1.5-year assignment in Brussels, Belgium.
Yep.
Where I was the audit manager for the European African component of the Monsanto engagement. And I was coming back, and after an international assignment, you kind of have options. And that's when I knew I didn't want to be an accountant anymore. And there was actually an opportunity to be the chief of staff for the firm's chief HR officer in the U.S. I'll just call him out because my favorite person on the planet, his name is Jim Wall. And I took that job. So I worked by the firm's HR leader, literally next to him, for 2.5 years. And
Wow.
I did everything from, to carry his bags to write or put together presentations, but more importantly, to work with every one of the national subject matter leaders, leader of comp, leader of Ben, leader of recruiting for the entire firm.
Right.
And then I got an opportunity to go to Chicago to be actually on the ground as a field professional, leading HR for the Chicago offices. Actually, it was the Midwest regions consulting practice, which was probably 2,000 employees. And and then that was my career for the next, I don't know, 10 years, basically.
Did you at any point early on care about a degree in HR or specialization in HR or certification? Did you care about those types of things? Because I remember your title at one point had CPA in it.
Yeah, I still throw that out there. Shit, I worked hard for those 3 letters.
Fair statement. I could pass that test. So we're good.
I couldn't sign a tax return or sign an audit opinion without getting thrown into jail. But I still carry those letters. HR certification was important to me because I didn't have formal HR training. So
right,
like that was a good way for me to kind of get my foundation.
Right.
And yeah, man. So I mean, I was fortunate to have been given a lot of experiences. I got sent overseas again after I was in HR then for a while to India to help Deloitte build its first real sizable offshoring practice. My job was to build the recruiting. They, almost literally parachuted me in, but I was over there for about a year with my wife, and at the time my only daughter, who was just a year and a half. But my job was to build the recruiting engine that was going to then staff up this offshoring business for Deloitte. When I got there, we had about, 400 employees. I was the first US guy on the ground. We had 4 recruiters. When I left, we had 40 recruiters. We had implemented an ATS. We had developed a brand. We hired 2,000 people while I was there. I mean, it was freaking
hiring in India at that time when BPO and all of that stuff was going on. It had to have been insane.
It was insane. People were walking across the street for 50 cents more an hour. Like
Right.
it was nuts. It was cool to be part of. It nearly killed me, I think, but it was
100%.
It was
the experience was good.
Good experience. Yeah.
Well, some of India, not all, but some of India, they have these things called micro promotions, where about every 3 to 6 months, they have to, for their family, culturally, they have to show progress in their career or progress is elsewhere. And so it's a trip, like for Westerners to then understand, like, okay, you don't just have an account manager and a senior account manager. Not in certain places in India. You have an account manager and an account manager junior, an account manager senior, and then an account manager assistant. Like there's 19 different progressions, which drives the comp people insane because they're trying to figure out how to level all that stuff out. But
yeah, but I mean that's just even understanding that nuance, which is no longer much of a nuance, was so important. And that was probably the hardest part of my experience there, is that I was fighting this, not fighting, but I was in the middle of this, like, I mean, even just like, even operationally, I would wake up and I'd work in India, and then I would go home and see my daughter and wife and have dinner, and then go back to work because the US woke up.
Yep.
And it was this game in trying to keep the U.S., trying to really educate the U.S. and US leaders on, we can't lift and shift what you crazy mofos do back home.
That's right.
Here. Like, that just doesn't work.
A little different, turns out.
And even the thing that you just pointed out, like, it was really important. I remember this. It was really important for us to establish a brand that was visible, that literally could be like, in the airports,
yes,
it was more important that when people said, "Where do I work?" that people around them could say, "Oh yeah, I know that place."
100%.
Then it really was a whole lot of other things. And at the time, Deloitte just would not have it. They didn't want to have.
This is the way we do things.
Yeah, no, okay, guys, well then we're done. So, and we finally busted them out of it, but God, it took a long time.
So then fast forward, you've done a ton of, some things in between. Fast forward, now you become a technologist and you create some technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did HR stuff for a long time. I did mostly large corporate America, and there came a point where I felt like I needed, I think just for sake of this conversation, I just needed to scratch an itch, which was something that rhymed or that did not rhyme with corporate America.
Well, you also, if I remember back to the genesis of that, is there was a problem and you really couldn't see a solution in the marketplace that solved that problem.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the, and I think it's still a problem, by the way, but So I failed, but
Yeah.
I mean, in its simplest terms, the problem was that like it's really like we spend 90% of our time assessing whether or not a candidate is the right fit for our organization, and the candidate doesn't get any time to figure out whether or not it's the right fit for them.
Right.
And I won't bash brands on this call, but like it was kind of the your listeners will be able to figure this out, but like I don't really care that on average people out on the internet are rating this place of employment as a 3.5. Like that doesn't really tell me anything.
Gives me no context.
I just don't care. And by the way, if anybody knows anything about math, if you get enough freaking ratings, you're all going to be 3.5.
It turns out. And if you're in baseball, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so I wanted to get to it all started as something like how can we get context out to the market that's a little bit more meaningful, and as many technology concepts go. So first, I jumped out of corporate America, I guess without a parachute, and kind of said we're going to do this, and my wife was extremely supportive and willing to say, hey man, if we're going to do it, now's the time, right? So we did it, and I partnered up with a couple of really cool people, and we built a model that was really just about assessing workplace culture. This was when even the conversation around workplace culture was just kind of getting started,
right?
And at the time, I mean, it's such a nebulous. What does that even? What does culture mean? And so we tried to give it some identity. We tried to give it some markers. We tried to develop some measures that would help us put some empirical data behind what's it really like to work here.
Right.
Like how does it feel? How does it smell? How does it taste? How does it
Get past the hype?
Yeah, like and no more but like. Okay, open door policy, but what does that fucking mean? Does that mean that like anybody can walk into your office anytime, or does it mean that so how do we put some words around that? Wasn't a great example, but lots of things like that. Like how do I help the person understand what do we do when we experience conflict? How do problems get solved? If I need information, how do I get it? It's.
Well, so many people back then, Charlie, probably all the way up till COVID, thought that culture was the box. It's the baseball games, it's going to bars afterwards, it's going to lunch together, it's the things that the foosball tables, it's all of this stuff that's in the box. And then you rip that out, with COVID, and a lot of the C-suite struggled to figure out like, what is culture? What is it? If we don't have the box, well, we're still paying for the box. That's a different issue. But we don't have the people can't go to the box. Well, what are we culturally?
Yeah.
And that disconnect.
And that was part of the process too, is educating people really on what culture is, and what it's not, for that matter.
Right.
And that, best, that we were really trying to kill this best places to work concept. Like,
right.
Best for who? Like, I mean, I guarantee you,
it's so easy to game that award.
4 hours in this place, right? Like, it's not the best place for you to work.
Yeah. Super subjective.
Just shout out to Maddie Grant, Jamie Notter. Those were two of my partners that really helped us develop the model and helped us get it off the ground. And then Question Pro, CEOs, Vivek Bhaskaran, he bought the company and now I'm back doing this stuff. But
they just sucked you back in. Go ahead, Ryan.
Why? I would say, so after Question Pro came in and sucked you up, why not go out and do something again? Why'd you fall back into the box?
That's a great question, man.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about, are we hireable? Are we even hireable at this point?
Charlie's hireable.
Yeah, clearly.
Well,
Yeah.
what turned out actually, I mean, so there's that tipping point always in the back of your head, which is like, well, how long can you be away
Right.
before,
Before you're not relevant.
before you're no longer relevant, right?
Lori and I have this discussion all the time because she still talks about HR. And I'm like, you left Pfizer almost 20 years ago. Not to date me or you, but like at one point, I mean, I talked to China Gorman about the same stuff, that people that go out and are independent, even if they're consulting, at one point, you're not working the desk internal. That's different. It's a different pressure. It's different politics. It's different. Much easier for me to come in and say, Charlie, you need to do these things, and then leave, than it is for Charlie to go, we need to do these 10 things, and how do I move the chessboard around, and etc. So I love Ryan's question, because you got a taste, and a successful taste at that, because most people fail, and you didn't fail. You succeeded, took something to market, and someone valued it enough to then buy it. So you're a
Yeah, man. Well,
successful
I appreciate that.
entrepreneur.
And I mean, just and you're right on all those fronts. I mean, I think, I mean, there were, even there was a time as in the recruiting game where, it was very, or even if you're dealing with hiring managers, it maybe still is popular, but when people used to say, oh, I don't know, man, this person's jumped around a whole lot.
What's the gap in your resume?
Job hopper every 2 years.
I mean, now I have conversations like, this person hasn't jumped around enough. Like, what is going on?
What's wrong with this person? They stayed there for 3 years. I don't trust that.
So I think there are companies out there that value that, right? Like, right. I mean, and IMO is clearly one of them. I would not have known this at the time, but my experience as an entrepreneur, as a founder in the technology space, creating a technology, creating a product, creating a subscription-based product, exiting, selling that product, and then being a product president within a larger company for a while, that was terribly relevant to this leadership team, to our CEO, and right. to the private equity firm, in endorsing my candidacy for this role. So I would have never thought that it would have helped me get back in, but it actually did.
Oh, 100%. I think that at one point you were a CHRO of an accounting firm.
I was, yep.
And if I remember that correctly,
Baker Tilly, yep.
Yeah, Baker Tilly. And I remember thinking when you took that job, I'm like, well, of course they love him, because they don't have to talk HR to him.
Right. Yeah.
He actually understands their world, in a meaningful way, and so they can talk in a different way. They can use different words, and then he can translate that into HR actions. So I thought it was brilliant. First of all, I thought it was brilliant on their part. Also, I thought it was brilliant on your part, because you could talk to people like it would be an easier conversation because you had the degree and the certification and all that other stuff and all that experience, so that you could actually talk to them. Like you could relate, and other HR leaders probably that are before that or after that they probably couldn't relate.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's helped me here, obviously, but it also taught me that this kind of environment is the right kind of environment for me. So I mean, it's not even about having my tech chops. It's about I like the pace. I like a place where we're okay making mistakes and messing things up. I like a place where we can drop an F-bomb probably more than we should. I like a place where we're not afraid to tell somebody how we feel. I like a place where emotion is part of the workplace.
Right.
And what we do with emotion is the more important thing. Like it's just, and that's, at least in a very generalized way, I'm more likely to get that kind of experience in a high growth technology firm than I am in other places.
Right.
How do you, so an HR professional who's kind of trying to take the path, right? They're working a desk, they're trying to work their way up into leadership. I guess the question is, how do they know when it's time to just walk away from it? They don't know. We talk to a lot of people.
Eh,
I should
I
probably.
know where this is going. I so love this.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so many people that we talk to that just
Unhappy.
they smack a wall, and but they stay. Like you stayed at Deloitte for 13 years.
Well, he's doing
When it
different things
well, you
along
were
the way,
doing
but
different
yeah.
things, yes. But when is it time for somebody in your organization, say, if someone's at your organization, whether it's HR or not, they're in your organization, they're there for 10 years, they're frustrated. When do you look at that person and say, maybe it's time to walk away?
Yeah. I mean, if I reflect on how those things have worked for me, well, so I guess a couple of things. Like, sorry for the cheesy analogy, but I've always thought about your relationship with an employer like like a fine bottle of wine. So, if you open it too soon, you haven't gotten as much out of it as you need. If you open it too late, it's freaking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But if you open it at the right time, i.e., if you leave at the right time,
Right.
like you got about what you could out of it.
Yeah. My answer to my wife when she was in corporate America, because she called me one day frustrated, like Ryan said, and she goes, "How do you know when to leave?" And I said, "It's real simple." I said, "If you're not learning, leave. If you're learning, you're doing you then stay as long as you're learning. But if you go through a stretch for a month or quarter where you're just like tread water and you're not learning something new, the universe is telling you."
Yeah.
On
I mean,
some level.
I think that's right. I think that's part of it. I think that and the learning component may be more important to a person than it is another.
Yeah, good point.
But use that as a variable. I mean, I think you have to start by whatever's driving your decision or whatever's driving the fact that you're having this internal debate with yourself. I mean, first you got to take some time to understand what is driving that debate.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, are you just having a shit day? Has it just been a tough time?
Yeah. Bad boss.
Tired? Are you bored? Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you got to understand what's getting you there. And if you can do that, then the first thing you got to do is figure out whether the person or the incumbency, the current situation, can in fact respond to that. And by the way, you can't expect somebody to come and figure it out for you. Like, you can't, if you're not getting what you need, ain't nobody going to come and give it to you.
That's a you thing.
And
yeah.
I mean, you got to go get it. And if you're not getting it, okay, well, then there's your answer.
Mm-hmm.
Do not wait for somebody to come and bring it to you.
Right.
Because it's not going to happen. So first, identify what it is. Okay. Then try to get it. Okay. And if you can't, okay, then go do it. Now, that is so much easier to say.
Oh, 100%.
Than to, because then enter into the equation the variables of life and stability and Maslow's hierarchy and all of the other things, right? So then the only other thing I would say is that I would encourage anybody that's having that internal debate to try to err on the side of risk every single time.
Trust yourself. Believe in yourself.
I mean, not to in any way demean the importance of this decision, but like, what's the worst that can happen?
Anybody gonna die? No? Great.
Yeah.
Go forward.
You'll find another job at some point.
You will. And oh, by the way, if that one doesn't work out, my guess is if you leave on the right terms with this other one, they'll fucking take you back.
Oh yeah.
Right.
100%.
I mean, I do it all the time. I don't care if you've been gone 2 years or 2 weeks. If we loved you and we hated to see you go, come on back.
Regrettable turnover. Yeah. Wish I still had that person. Go ahead.
Why was there? And I mean, I know organizations are doing this today, where they just have a policy: you leave, you can't come back.
Seriously?
What is that? What is that about? It's like, if you leave the organization, they don't really hire boomerangs. Right? Like,
that's a holdover from the military-industrial complex and command and control. If you leave, you're thought of as a traitor.
Oh,
You're dead
whatever it
and
serious.
is, it's
and
wrong.
you're dead. No, but that's where it comes from. But if you want to do the archaeology and anthropology of it, indigenous stories from all over the world all have a story of someone that left the village.
Interesting.
They all have a story. It's just, someone went out on a hunt early, and then all of a sudden when they came back, they were shunned because they
Mm,
made a decision that could have impacted the tribe or the group, etc. So this has been going around, this
Hmm.
story of the person that leaves. We're thinking about it in an empathetic. We're also thinking about it like we love them. They wanted to do something different that we couldn't offer. They went and did it. We
Right.
still love them, which is it's an evolved thought.
yeah. I
It's
don't
an
know. I mean,
evolved
I don't
concept.
know. I know of that. I don't know that as a matter of policy as it relates to anybody. I've certainly seen it in like separation agreements for
Yeah.
involuntary separate. But I will tell you that that was one of the, we had that in our separation agreement when I got here. That was one of the things I took out. I don't care if we fired you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if we fired you for like really
Cause.
nasty,
Yeah.
egregious kinds of stuff, like we're probably not
Different
going
bit.
to have a conversation again. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Right.
you know what? The world changes. So
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. What are you seeing in employee experience now that's kind of different than some of the things you kind of grew up with? What are the expectations of employees? I know it's varied, but just things that you see now that you would have never seen before, and vice versa.
I really wish that I could give you a good answer to that.
You'll think of it tonight. That's okay. Just
Well, no, I mean, that's kind of my roundabout way of saying like, I don't know that really things are changing that much. um,
Hmm.
the
That's
optimist.
encouraging.
I like this.
I mean, come on, seriously. I mean, okay. So maybe we're all more comfortable with remote work arrangements,
Eh.
right? But even
Is that an
those
evolution or a
companies that were
revolution? Yeah.
forced to deal with them are now like, eh, right? So like, and that's not even fair. Like, that's not like get that one out of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. 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 That's
but
cheap.
But listen again. Like, figure out what's important to you. Don't to you your company. Figure out what's important. If you believe that your company is more effective when you're all in the office together, then get everybody back into the
Yeah.
office.
Go all in.
I
Push
go
chips.
all in. I don't care. That's not the point. It's not
Right.
about signing up for some world order around employee experience. It's about what's going to drive success in your company.
Yeah.
Be
Solving that algebra.
decisive. Yeah.
And if you hire better people, if you need to hire the kinds of people that want to be in a room and they're social and they need to ideate, and the best way for them to do that is if they're walking the halls and they're solving complex problems, and that just doesn't happen over.
A few moments later.
Yeah, so like stop the debate around whether or not you should be back in the office or you should be remote or you should be hybrid. Like start with what does your company need to be more successful? And don't be embarrassed or ashamed of either one of those things. You don't have to be hybrid because that's what everybody else is doing.
Right.
You don't have to be remote. If your company believes that spending time in the office is important, then make that happen.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
But don't do it because Joe is doing it.
All right. It's solving the algebra of thrive for the company and understanding that the company
Yeah.
collectively needs to understand where do we thrive and how do we thrive. And now let's go fit the people. Let's go find the people that like that and want to thrive in that way. And those that don't, fantastic. There's there's plenty of places for you.
If you make decisions about workplace culture, employee experience based on what you believe is
Right.
going to create value for your company, however you define that, then you'll ultimately, if you're willing to own that, you'll ultimately end up with the right people in your organization.
Right.
Your job is not to create employee experiences that speak to every individual in your workforce.
Right.
In fact, if you try to do that, you shouldn't be in this business because it's impossible.
It's an unwinnable game.
You can't win the game.
Yeah.
So be who you are and let those that gravitate towards that come and stay.
Right.
That's the point.
Let them support the mission.
Come in and thrive. There was a point, Charlie, where you could remember around culture in particular where there was a question, why does HR own culture when they can't impact a lot of the things that happen in culture? And you've been a part of that whole, you've seen all of the pros and cons and arguments around that. So I want to get your take on kind of, because your title has culture in it. So you obviously believe that HR and culture, there is a symbiotic relationship between the two. But how do you explain that to people that say, well, culture is the experience you have with the receptionist, or culture is the experience that you have with accounts payable, etc. Like culture is all these other different things that HR they can't control, which begs the question: can you control culture? But leave that to the side for a second.
Yeah.
What do you think about? I mean, your title's got culture in it, and that's purposeful. So,
well, I mean, HR does not own culture. No one owns culture. We all fucking own culture.
Right.
Every single one of us.
Right.
Where I think HR comes into play, or can come into play, is that culture will evolve on its own. It is a natural workplace culture is an ecosystem that will do what it does
with or without you.
With or without you. The question is, does it become what you want it to become?
Oh, that's interesting.
Or what you need it to become? Again, back to the conversation around what's going to drive your success.
Right.
So if you buy that as a premise, then somebody's got to make sure that the organization is being intentional about managing the culture. That doesn't mean about controlling it.
Right.
It means about, first identifying what are the kinds of behaviors, actions, values, beliefs that are going to drive the right kind of culture for this organization. Do we have those right behaviors, values, actions, beliefs showing up in the right places at the right times? And how do we get more intentional about cultivating it? It's not about controlling it, but it's about identifying it, owning it, and then managing it in a really intentional way. HR cannot do that alone, but somebody has to carry the ball. And I think it makes a lot of sense if you're the right team of people for HR to own it.
To put some guardrails
HR
around
to facilitate, to manage, not to own.
Yeah, right. Put some guardrails around it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I got just really on the culture thing. Have you had anything that you've tried programmatically that you've tried that you thought it was going to be awesome, and it turned out that it wasn't awesome? I'll give you one of my fails. 100 years ago, I would take our entire firm out to drink right after the end of the day, but before anyone had dinner.
Fail number one.
Right? So, and it was an open bar. Have as much as you want. Go. We're all young. Let's have fun, etc. And I thought that was a great thing. Like, okay, it's Thursday night. Let's just go have fun. Everybody, you can show up late tomorrow. It doesn't matter. But I did it in a way that didn't really set anybody up for success, myself included. But because you just got done with a day of work, you haven't eaten. So the people got hammered, and a lot of HR things, statute of limitations is run out on most of these things. But the bit is like, I thought that was a great thing. Upon reflection, now that was horrible. Like that was just.
Well, I mean, it was probably a great thing for some people.
100%, 100%. No, 100%. No, there was a sex tape created after one of these such nights. I mean, 2 office mates, 2 of my employees. I'm like, what have I created? What monster have I created? And it's
This
again,
is where Charlie's HR mask comes on. William, stop talking.
No, he doesn't work for me. And
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're
that's,
good.
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't know that I have an interesting answer other than to say that it happens every freaking day.
Yeah.
I mean, we like that's the other, so that's the flip side to the intentionality or management, right? Like there's a really fine line, right? You're not,
because you can't control it.
you can't control it. So you don't want to get so programmatic about it that it feels like, okay, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
so we try a lot of things, and sometimes they stick and
Right.
sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just fall flat, and that's okay. Like, okay, then let's find the next one. And then the ones that like seem to stick are the ones that, more people coalesce around, and sometimes those things evolve. Sometimes they'll get hijacked by a group of people and they turn into something that you didn't want them to be to begin with, but they are what they are. Like it's just,
Yeah.
but you got to kind of let that happen. I mean, maybe that's the other part of it is that somebody's got to make the boat, the little wood balsa boats that you put in the lake, but then you got to let that thing just kind of float and see. It's a terrible analogy. I don't like boats or lakes, but I love lakes, but I don't like putting little balsa boats in lakes. I don't know where that came from.
Gilligan's Island?
Wait a second. What are we talking about?
It was a 3-hour tour. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna use the seed planting, but like that's way overused. So anyway,
No.
you gotta plant some seeds. You gotta see what happens, and every now and then something's gonna die, man. That's just that's the way it is.
Got to put the chicken in the marinade and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then you can.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, steal that one. The balsa wood.
So I know we're coming up on time. You've got a lot of stuff to do, but one last question here, unless William, you've got more.
No, you're good. You're good.
What would the younger Charlie tell himself about? What's that? Charles. You throw him like, wait, no.
Did you go by Charles at any point? Was there a...
It's on my birth certificate, but no, it's not.
That was it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. So what would the younger self tell the older self about? About what you need to stay grounded with once you reach where you want it to be.
Oh, that's interesting. We do that in reverse a lot, where we ask them, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah. What would you tell your older self? Yeah,
that's cool. So you're in high school. You've just been to prom. You're about to graduate.
So I'm talking to the 54-year-old Chaz.
That's right.
Yeah.
Care about family.
Yeah.
Try not to mess up this first job.
We're always talking about what would we tell our younger self.
I mean, damn, it is such a fucking good question.
When you're younger, you love your parents, you love your siblings, you're carefree. Then you get older and you've got kids, family, mortgage, little boats that you float around in the lake with.
I know what mine would have been. 16 or 18-year-old William.
That used to, take wood balsa boats with and play in the lake with.
Don't ever use that metaphor. You'd be able to. That's one thing. I think 16, 18-year-old William would have just say, keep taking risk. Just don't get compliant.
Yeah, that's come to mind. I mean, I think that's probably one of them. I really want to have a thoughtful, not for the sake, I don't care about your stupid podcast. I just want to have a good.
Yeah.
This is
an existential
mental exercise.
Yeah.
This is part of maybe a mindfulness exercise.
Yeah.
I kind of need to go to. It has something to do with, because I know that I compromised on this a lot through my career. I have not so much in the latter part of my career. So maybe I am listening to my 15-year-old self, but it has a lot to do with like kind of showing up in a way that you would show up at your best friend's.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't like having to put on a different persona in the workplace.
Right.
That's not my shtick. And that, by the way, does not make me always a great HR executive.
100%.
Because unfortunately, in the 21st century, still we have to do some of that. But I've been, and as I think about that swan song that I'm starting to write, that's going to be an important dynamic for me.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I started with my dad's eulogy with that bit where I'm like, listen, you could be anywhere right now. You choose these inflection points to show up or not. No judgment. It's weddings and funerals and baby showers and stuff like that. There's so many excuses that you can make to yourself and others about how you can't be there or why you can't be there. You know, the things that are tugging at you, real or imagined. And y'all all showed up. So just first of all, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of people that afterwards they would talk to me. It's like I hadn't thought about showing up in that way. Like I just thought, you know, your dad did. I needed to be there. I'm like, yeah, but that was intentional. Whether or not you knew it or not, you had a relationship with him and you wanted to actually come and celebrate his life. It's like, again, you make these micro choices, these little tiny choices. I still remember my best friend. He's been married 4 times. So, but anyhow, his first marriage,
Pretty good at
whom
marriage.
I knew the great guy. But I knew the first girl that he got married to, and I was out living in Midland, Texas, working pretty hard and all this other stuff. Got his invitation, had all the intent in the world to show up and be at his wedding, and something came up. I can't even remember what came up. It isn't even worth thinking about, and I still to this day regret that.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't married that long and all that other stuff. But I didn't know that at the time. It's like I could have easily driven 5 hours to their wedding.
I just really love. I don't know that I don't know if you've coined this yourself, Tim Cup, or if it's, but the micro choice concept is really cool to me. I mean, I think we get caught up in big really quickly, you know.
100%.
And I mean, it goes back, Ryan, your question about the whole kind of career decision. You know, I mean, like that doesn't have to be a big decision. Like, I mean, you know, how do you turn little things that you do, choices that you make every day into something? And how do you celebrate the fact that you are making progress in your life and your career,
right,
by the virtue of just having made some of those very, very micro choices?
Yep.
You know, like we need something bigger, we need something better, we need blah blah.
Yeah.
No, like just
I think society
today, man.
Yeah, society has baked that into our heads as from young age all the way up, right?
100%.
Get your straight A's, go out on the sports field, excel, get the trophy, graduate high school, go to college, get a job, you're entitled to a job, you're entitled to this. Every decision was a big decision.
Yep.
For some of us.
That's what I say.
Some of us.
William
For
Tim
some
Cup,
of
that's
us.
going to be your epitaph, like making micro choices his entire life.
And most of them are really, really inappropriate. Charlie, thank you so much for carving out time. I know you just came off of vacation or sabbatical or something, so you needed some time to kind of get your world in order. But thank you for carving out time for us.
You bet, man. It's bad. Loved it. Good to reconnect on a number of levels. Good dialogue.
100%. Ryan, this is where you're supposed to say to share and like and do all the things.
Yes. If you're listening, share, love us, like us, subscribe, see us out there, say hello. We'll probably say hello back. If you have t-shirts, send me some t-shirts and hats. I love t-shirts and hats. We got to put that out there. So we'll see you next time.